This is the story of a beautiful nun and a brave American soldier stranded together on a lonely island in the middle of the South Pacific during World War II. With no one else around, survival becomes their greatest challenge. But can a man and a woman stop each other's temptations? Let's find out. The movie starts with a U.S. Marine named Mr. Allison, a lone survivor drifting in the Pacific after his submarine was destroyed by Japanese forces. For 7 long days, he fought exhaustion, clung to a life raft, and survived only by drinking rainwater. Just when his strength was fading, he finally washed ashore on a remote island. The place was eerily silent, its villages abandoned, homes empty, and no signs of life. But inside an old church, Allison stumbled upon someone he never expected to see, a woman in white, quietly sweeping the floor. Startled, he realized she was not just any woman, but a nun. Her name was Sister Angela. At first, frightened by the sudden appearance of a stranger, she quickly softened when she recognized him as an American Marine. Angela revealed her heartbreaking story. She had been trapped on this island while fleeing Japanese forces who had slaughtered or captured her fellow missionaries. She had survived with Father Philip, her pastor, but only for a short time. He had passed away just days after they arrived. Since then, Angela had lived completely alone, clinging to her faith, waiting and praying for a miracle. The island had once been home to local villagers, but their settlement had been destroyed by Japanese troops, forcing everyone to flee. Now, only silence remained. Hearing her story, Allison promised her he wouldn't let her face this nightmare alone. He even began planning an escape, thinking he could build a boat out of the rubber raft that had saved him. Fortunately, Angela hadn't starved. Leftover gardens and food from the villagers still provided enough for survival. But while nature gave them food, it couldn't ease the loneliness. Angela remained cheerful and innocent, guided completely by her faith. Allison, on the other hand, was a hardened Marine who didn't think much about religion. One point, Allison even asked why a woman as beautiful as her would choose the life of a nun when surely many men would have loved her. Angela simply smiled and said, "Because I love my God very much." Her words carried a calm certainty that silenced him. Not long after, Angela spotted a turtle swimming close to the shore. Allison quickly seized the chance, telling her that if they were going to survive, she needed to learn how to hunt too. With makeshift tools in hand, the two dashed to the water's edge, splashing through the waves as they tried to trap the creature. With Angela's help, Allison managed to snare its head, but the powerful turtle dragged them further into the sea. Allison had no choice but to dive under, wrestle it down, and finally pull it to shore. That evening, the chewy, oily turtle meat became a feast, the first good meal they'd had in days. For a brief moment, things felt hopeful, but the very next day, as they were working on an inflatable boat, the sound of a plane shattered their peace. Looking up, Allison froze. It was Japanese. Fearing they'd been discovered, he pulled Angela into the trees until they found a cave to hide in. His instincts were right. Soon, explosions ripped across the island. When the dust cleared, everything had been destroyed. Villages burned, fields scorched. Even the rubber boat Allison had worked so hard to build was blown to pieces. Worse yet, they hadn't stored any food inside the cave. The danger grew when Japanese soldiers arrived on the island, preparing to use it as their base. Allison urged Angela to remain hidden while he went out for food. Patrols scoured the island, but by some miracle, the cave remained undiscovered. The next morning, Allison risked everything by wading into the rocks to catch fish. His determination paid off, but just as he was about to return, a flash of light startled him. A Japanese patrol boat was sweeping the shore with flashlights. Allison ducked into the waves, holding his breath until they passed. Did he rush back with his catch? Exhausted and hungry, he offered the raw fish to Angela, but she recoiled at the smell, unable to stomach it. Allison tried to persuade her, reminding her that survival meant sacrifice, but in the end, she quietly turned away, lying down to sleep while Allison ate alone. Allison grew worried about her health. He knew she couldn't last long without proper food, so even though it meant risking his life, he decided to sneak into the Japanese camp to steal supplies. Inside the barracks, the The danger was even greater. Men were still awake, talking, smoking, keeping watch. Allison pressed himself into the dark. Did he quietly grab whatever food he could carry? Before leaving, he spotted something small and delicate on a table, a simple wooden comb. On impulse, he pocketed it, imagining Angela's smile. At dawn, Angela awoke to find a little bundle of flowers and leaves placed neatly on a stone, with the comb hidden inside. Allison, crouched behind the rocks, waited nervously for her reaction. She picked it up, touched by the gesture, though she explained gently that she couldn't use it. When she became a nun, her hair had been cut short as part of her vows. Allison told her to throw it away, embarrassed, but Angela tucked it carefully into her things instead. In that moment, Allison's feelings for her were clear. Gathering his courage, he asked if she could ever leave her vows behind, live like an ordinary woman, and perhaps even marry a man. But Angela, with her calm innocence, replied that her vows were sacred, not something to be broken for worldly love. She loved God, not men. Her words left Allison disappointed, but in his heart, he vowed not to give up. Perhaps one day, she would open her heart to him. Their quiet moment was cut short when the earth shook with the deafening blast of bombs. Allison rushed out of the cave to see flashes of fire lighting up the night sky. When the explosions finally faded, silence fell across the island. Taking the chance, Allison checked the Japanese barracks, only to discover they had been abandoned. Relieved, he returned to Angela and urged her to come with him. They might finally have a chance to breathe freely inside the empty houses. It turned out the Japanese soldiers had only left the island temporarily because their food stores were still intact inside the abandoned house. Allison couldn't waste such a chance. Laughing and singing, he and Angela gathered supplies. As the sun set, they sat together quietly, Allison humming his favorite tune while Angela carefully sewed clothes. Watching her in the fading light, Allison felt it was finally time to speak from his heart. He gently asked what Angela would do if they were ever rescued and returned to America. With her usual innocence, she replied that she would go back to her convent, finish her training, and dedicate her life fully to God. Her words broke his heart, but Allison pushed forward, asking her to marry him, to build a family, to live side by side. Touched by his sincerity, Angela's eyes softened, but she shook her head. She showed him the simple ring on her finger, explaining that she was already promised to God, and if she completed her vows, that ring would be replaced by gold as a sign of her eternal devotion. For her, that was a love she could never betray. Hiding his sorrow, Allison pretended to check the beach, while Angela quietly wiped away tears. Deep down, she admired him more than she could admit, but she forced herself to let those feelings go. That night, they settled into the house, trying to make a simple meal with rice. Among the supplies, Angela found a strange bottle, which Allison explained was sake, a Japanese drink similar to wine. Curious, he invited her to drink with him, but Angela refused. Upset and overwhelmed, Allison ended up drinking the sake himself until he was drunk. The alcohol loosened his tongue, and in his confusion, he said things he never should have said, frightening Angela with words that made her run out into the storm. Heartbroken, she stumbled into the forest, sobbing. Moments later, the rain poured harder, and Angela collapsed from exhaustion. Realizing what he had done, Allison's heart filled with regret. He rushed to her side. Allison gently carried Angela back into the cave where they had once hidden before. She was trembling from the cold, so without hesitation, he removed his own shirt to wrap around her, holding her close to keep her warm. Through the night, he watched over her, his worry deepening as Angela grew weaker from fever and hypothermia. Determined to save her, Allison risked everything and crept back into the Japanese barracks. This time, he was discovered by a soldier. In a desperate struggle, Allison was forced to silence him and hide the body. He returned with blankets and food, laying them over Angela's fragile frame. When she awoke, she was startled to find herself covered only in cloth, but Allison quickly explained, his eyes full of guilt, apologizing that his failures had led her to fall ill. Their troubles grew when the Japanese discovered the missing soldier and ordered the island to be searched and burned. Angela could only clasp her hands in prayer, whispering for a miracle, and perhaps heaven listened. for their hiding place was never found. Then, one morning, the air thundered with the sound of planes. Allison rushed outside and with tears in his eyes, danced with relief under the sight of American bombers soaring across the sky. The tide of war was changing. Japan was retreating. But with victory so near, Allison and Angela faced their most painful choice. Angela, torn by her heart and her vow, wanted to stay near the man who had saved her, while Allison longed for her to abandon the convent life and be with him forever. Angela wept, holding his hand. She whispered that her life belonged to God, and she could not break her vow, no matter how much she admired him. Allison's chest ached, but he understood. Her love was spoken for. With quiet courage, Allison turned his pain into duty. He set out to destroy the Japanese cannons hidden on the island. A blast tore into his shoulder, but he pushed on, disabling the weapons to protect the incoming American fleet. Finally, exhausted and bleeding, he collapsed as American troops stormed the beach, rescuing both him and Angela. In the end, Angela returned to Fiji, dedicating herself once more to the monastery, keeping her vow with unshaken faith. Allison went back to his unit, fighting bravely until the war drew to its devastating close with the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. If you're still here, I truly hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please leave a like and a subscribe to join the community. And if you have a few extra minutes, you can watch more amazing movie stories by clicking on the videos on your screen. Thanks,